My name is Ben Chehebar, and I'll be presenting the revolutions of Haiti and the United States, constitutions and ideologies. The revolutions of Haiti and the United States shaped their resulting constitutions in factors such as their goals, their leaders, the role that race played in the struggle for independence, all influenced how these nations defined citizenship and who was a citizen, and for whom these governmental and political systems that in turn defined their nation were for. So to start, let's just go over an overview of the American Revolution real quick. British troops occupying Boston, the Boston Massacre, and the passage of the Coercive Acts from 68 to 74, also known as the Intolerable Acts, set a groundwork for American resistance to the British. And in 1774, that First Continental Congress represents a organization of the colonies in a way that hadn't been done before. 1775, war breaks out after shots are fired at Lexington and Concord. Also in 1775, Lord Dunmore, governor of Virginia, proclaims freedom to able-bodied slaves that fought against the colonies. We would see some similar legislation or general kind of practice by the American forces, but in general, formerly enslaved people would have a better chance of ensuring their freedom with the British rather than the Americans, and so most of them did fight on the British side of the war. 1775 marks the Second Continental Congress, and shortly after that you have the Declaration of Independence. This is significant because it happens within the first year of the war. Later, the next year, the Battle of Saratoga brings the French into the war. 1780, British capture of Charleston, South Carolina, is important because it's a big blow to the Patriots and also seeks to cut off the southern states' support for the American Revolution, perhaps making sure that issues such as slavery are protected or not discussed in the resulting constitutions that would come in 87. And by 81, you have the Battle of Yorktown, which leads to the British surrender, and the rest of the war is a foregone conclusion until the 1783 Treaty of Paris, which ensures their independence. And from 77 to 81, the Articles of Confederation were ratified by the states. However, 1787, the U.S. Constitution is ratified and replaces those Articles of Confederation. So the overview of the Haitian Revolution, initially you can see there are a lot more points. It's a more complicated, longer conflict. And it really starts with the French Revolution and the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, setting the ideological foundation for the Haitian Revolution. The 1791 slave revolt in Haiti is incredibly significant, led by Vincent Auger with Toussaint Louverture, who would go on to lead the colony of Saint-Domingue until 1802. 1793, free black people in Haiti are granted citizenship and rights, and more violence erupts from the white planter class, not just in reaction to the slave revolts, but also to this granting of civil rights. And that prompts the Spanish and the British to enter the war. The Spanish on the sides of the revolting slaves to stir chaos within the colony, and the British on the side of the white planter class. But by 1794, when emancipation is proclaimed by France, Louverture switches sides and joins the French. 1795 marks the Directory coming to power in France, which causes some tension as they could possibly overturn the 1794 Declaration of Emancipation, but it is enshrined in their constitution. So it is well established in France. And 1798, the British are defeated under Louverture's leadership. Napoleon overthrows the Directory, again causing some tension as emancipation is not enshrined in the Constitution this time. And a civil war between the North and the South of Saint-Domingue breaks out, which Louverture wins in the North. However, he does go on to alienate these southern mulatto generals who he fights against. And by 1801, the capture of Santo Domingo by Louverture means that the entirety of the island of Hispaniola is under Louverture's control, and in this height of power, he writes his 1801 constitution, which does not declare independence, but does give notions of self-rule, and seeks to re-examine the role of Saint-Domingue in France within their colonial system. In response to this, the 1802 invasion of Haiti by French General Leclerc leads to the defection of Toussaint Louverture, Henry Christophe, and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, three very important and influential generals and leaders since the original slave revolts in 1791. But the next year, this French expeditionary force is defeated due partly to disease and partly to large populist revolutions by the people who do not want to be enslaved again. And in 1804, after the defeat of the expeditionary forces, is when independence is declared, and the next year, the Haitian Constitution pronounces Dessalines Emperor of the Haitian Empire. So, with that knowledge, we can move on to some of the ideologies that underpin these revolutions. Some of the big similarities are these revolutionary ideas that did form a foundation for their revolutions. Holt describes that many of these black insurgents seized the still evolving Republican language of human rights and made it their own in Haiti. While in the United States, the Declaration of Independence and the preamble both give pretty clear examples of the right of revolution, ideas about life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness that are reflecting these Enlightenment philosophies at the time. And they both have to do with the rule of law and colonial exploitation, both of these revolutions. Within the Constitution of 1805, we see that Article 3 states that everyone is equal under the law, and the U.S. Constitution, in ensuring rule of law, has the Supremacy Clause in Article 6. And additionally, both of these revolutions are in response to colonial exploitation. The Declaration of Independence talks about this colonial exploitation, and just from the history we see, from the timeline I just showed you, you see the intolerable acts, the occupation of Boston, the Boston Massacre, all setting this foundation for the revolution. And slavery, particularly in Haiti, was the defining issue of what defined colonial Atlantic exploitation. But there were notable differences between these revolutions. The idea of racial equality was incredibly different between them, as Haiti was a place where racial equality did exist for black people at the time, which was directly at odds with the rest of the European and Atlantic world. And as such, they would face a lot of isolation from that. And they're looking at their constitutions. The idea of democracy is very different. The emperor of the Constitution of Haiti makes an empire while the American Constitution does make a republican democracy. And although that emperor is elected, you still get very different ideas about what democracy means and what the right of the people within their government is. And there are differences in the egalitarianism within the revolution, because in the Haitian Revolution, the people that serve as emperor, as governor for life, as the first king of Haiti, as these military leaders, were these formerly enslaved and these free people of color who previously had little to no participation within the government. And so you can see this is incredibly radical and incredibly egalitarian compared to the United States, which kept their same ruling colonial elite now as the American United States elite political class. And so the goals of each revolution is important to look at when considering their legacies and their revolutions themselves. The Haitian Revolution, is important to know, started as a slave revolt. The main goal was the abolition of slavery and the push for civil rights within the colonial system. In 1801, Toussaint Louverture writes that forever live the French Republic and the colonial constitution. When he proclaims his new constitution, he is happy to do so within the colonial context of France, so long as slavery is abolished. Independence was declared only at the end of the war in service to this main goal of ending the institution of slavery. The enslaved people's struggle for independence unfolded into a war of independence. The enslaved people's struggle for freedom unfolded into a war for independence, Fick writes. And this resulting 1805 Constitution is short, and it is very vague in places, talking about merchant courts that it doesn't say how many people are in them. It doesn't say how these people are elected. It doesn't have qualifications for who can serve in them. It's all at the discretion of the emperor. But the formal abolishment of slavery is written line 2, the second article of the first section. So clearly, the goal of the Haitian Revolution was freedom from enslavement. While with the U.S. Revolution had its origins among the wealthy merchants and colonial elite, and they had numerous congresses and conventions dedicated specifically to nation building. The constitutional conventions, the Second Continental Congress, right? These set the groundworks for the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution we have today. Independence was an early idea in the Revolutionary War. Common Sense, published in 1776, popularized a lot of these ideas. But independence was issued within the first year of the war. And so the U.S. Constitution is longer, with detailed systems of governance. So clearly independence was the goal of the American Revolution. There were differences in the enemies faced by each revolution. The French government during the Haitian Revolution was incredibly unstable. Revolutionary government replaced with Directory, replaced by Napoleon, policy shifted a lot as a result of this. And there was the common threat of the reinstatement of slavery, as they could declare any of the previous government's policies invalid. And there was a pro-slavery faction of the French Republic that did come back after Napoleon pardoned them. And we see Napoleon's invasion of Saint-Domingue did see this reinstatement of slavery in places like Guadeloupe, and his intention to do the same if he had, if the French forces had won. And this leads to a longer, more complex conflict compared to the stable British government, with one head of state to negotiate with, along with their parliament. A significantly shorter and less complex conflict, and they could be sure their enemy was negotiating in good faith, since they weren't likely to be overthrown and their policy completely revoked, and because the same legacy of law between the US and the British, the same legal systems existed. And although they would have to fight in the War of 1812 to maintain this independence, their independence was largely respected while Haiti's was not. And so this shapes their government and their social structures. How how you would need a strong leader in Haiti to contend with a constantly shifting, quickly shifting foreign situation, while in the United States, with a stable government they're fighting against, could develop the democratic process that does take longer, but is more stable. There were a bunch of differences in leadership during the Revolution. In the American Revolution, you see distinct military and political leaders. George Washington wasn't leading Congress when he was also fighting in the Revolution, right? There's a unified struggle of these states with a common plan for government, with minor disagreement between them. And so you have a detailed constitution collectively agreed upon and ratified by the states. You can compare this to the lack of consensus they had about the role of black people in the United States. And so there's very little mention of this in the Constitution. Only the one section in Article 1 talking about representation and the 3/5 compromise show that it was discussed, but there was little consensus, and so it was not added to the Constitution, as opposed to the Common Plan for Government, which was very thought out and very and agreed upon and ratified by all of these states. And then you see in the Haitian Revolution, strong authoritarian and military leadership. Louverture, a military leader, also had virtually hegemonic political power by 1801 with his constitution. And the Constitution of 1805 followed the same path, declaring an empire and declaring that Haitians are above all good fathers, good citizens, and good soldiers. This echoed the French Revolution, which started as a revolutionary and military struggle that resulted in an empire, right? And the unified military leaders were only unified in their goal of preventing enslavement and not with any plan for the resulting nation or their independence. The struggle for independence very much was waged from opposing camps, and they would have to work to define their nation once independence was achieved in 1804, according to Fink. We can see Toussaint Louverture on the left versus the Continental Congress on the bottom there, and these two organizations did inform a lot of policy during their respective revolutions. And you can see that there's a large democratic process going on in the bottom, while Toussaint Louverture was pretty much in charge and had hegemonic political power during his reign by 1801. The role of enslaved and free people of color in the revolutions also informed not just their nations, not just who they saw as citizens after their independence, but the revolutions themselves as they fought in the struggle. The Haitian Revolution started as a slave revolt. I've said this before, it's important, I'll say it again. It started as a slave revolt. Constant resistance of formerly enslaved persons to any threat that would seek to enslave them once again. Resistance took the form of clandestine individual actions and collective conspiracies, right? The people had a fierce determination to not be re-enslaved. And so black people served as leaders, soldiers, policymakers in a way that they had never done before under the colonial system. Toussaint Louverture, former slave, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, former slave, and Henry Christophe, all former slaves. Toussaint Louverture was governor for life, Jean-Jacques Dessalines was emperor, was the first emperor, and Henry Christophe was king of Haiti. There was also considerably higher percentage of people of color, both free and formerly enslaved, to the total population in Haiti than in the United States. And so the Haitian state was made with this group in mind. Defines Articles 13 and 14 of the Haitian Constitution define Haitians as blacks and automatically citizens. in a way that they did not automatically define white people as citizens within Haiti. The U.S. Constitution was made with the elite landowning white class in mind, and the free population of blacks presented an awkward situation to U.S. policymakers, as it was not discussed in the Constitution except for an all other persons line in Article 1 of the Constitution, and Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3 shows that they did in fact defend slavery in the Constitution with some runaway slave laws that ensure the property and constitutionally on a federal level make harboring slaves and akin to stealing and keeping property. And so it would be up to future generations to close this divide. All right, and within the American Revolution, black soldiers did fight, but they were relegated to labor and irregular forces, which did not challenge the notions that these black people were fit only for menial labor and to serve whites. Holt says on page 98, freedom for slaves fighting in the American Revolution was gained through the Patriots or the British. There was not a role for slaves to seize their own freedom as much as there was in Saint-Domingue. And so you see that after the war they have much less a platform for which to advocate for their own rights and emancipation, since both sides sought to preserve slavery and pursued policies towards black people in their ranks that were at best ambivalent. And you see that the legacies of the American and Haitian Revolution echo into today. In race and society, Haiti would serve as an example of black self-governance for nations all over the world, especially during the decolonization era in the late 1900s. Immigrants from Saint-Domingue would also make up a considerable portion of the free people of color in Philadelphia. As such, they would inform the civil rights movement, both the pre-war and their descendants would form the post-war, post-Civil War civil rights movements in the United States. Although Haiti received little opportunity or recognition in the Atlantic world, which fundamentally opposed its notions of racial equality, meaning that economically it was stifled, politically and militarily it was challenged, and so it struggled very much to form the society that it was trying to envision during its independence. And the issue of slavery in the United States brought the Civil War and years of racial inequality that last into the present day. Founding fathers left it to future generations to sort out the core contradiction in the American Constitution that all men are created equal while slavery persisted. And so you see also in policy and government, the Haitian government reflected the fate of many Latin American countries. It shared the same fate of military caudillos seizing control not long after independence. And the growing population of African Americans in the United States would force the country to deal with the issue of civil rights. It could not just be ignored as it was during the Revolutionary period. Organizations such as churches created black communities that could champion reform legislation that could give them the platform to advocate for their own rights that they lacked before. And so we can see that the constitutions and definitions of citizenship, which was only extended to white citizens in the United States and black citizens in Haiti, is shaped very much so by their revolutions and who participated in those, who could own property, who could participate in government. All of these ideas were shaped by the early formations of these governments and the nations that came from them. Thank you.